The heat rolled off the concrete like something alive, even at 7:15 a.m. The air at the Pensacola training base already carried the shimmer of high noon, asphalt baked under combat boots. Shadows clung to the narrow strips beneath the barracks and bleachers, shrinking fast as the sun climbed higher. A low rhythm of movement pulsed across the grinder cadets, stretching, forming ranks, adjusting straps, slapping their thighs to wake up their legs before the instructors did it for them. The scent was a rough mix of sweat, gun oil, rubber, and sunblock. In the middle of all that motion, she stood still. Oversized gray PT shorts, plain navy tee, hair tied back with no cover, no insignia, no name, just a blank uniform and a presence that didn't quite match the noise around her. Most didn't even register here at first. Just another staffer. Logistics. Maybe admin. Someone lost between the training deck and the chow hall. But then came the jokes. First a whisper, then a louder voice cutting through the morning static. Someone from second squad. Maybe third. The joke landed hard enough to make heads turn. Ma'am. Yoga mats are that way. You might sweat your hair out here. Laughter erupted in small bursts. Mostly male. Mostly nervous. Not mean yet, but pushing in that direction. The kind of laughter that looks for a cue from the loudest guy in the row. She didn't flinch. Didn't blink. Just kept standing there with both feet planted, arms at her sides. Gaze calm and neutral like the noise hadn't touched her at all. Captain Matthew Harlon leaned forward against the rail of the catwalk above. He scanned the line of cadets, then narrowed his focus on her. Something about the way she held herself. It wasn't arrogance. Wasn't fear. Either. Just balance. That's what struck him. Like she'd measured the ground under her and settled into it with intention. She didn't need to move because she wasn't reacting. She was waiting. The morning light caught the edge of a worn flagpole, flaring white across the deck. A few cadets shuffled their boots, nudged each other, eyes flicking toward her again. Still, she didn't speak. One cadet Harlan couldn't place the name tried to get another laugh, but it came out flat, like the moment had already turned. Eventually, she shifted her weight. Not hurried, not defeated, just done. She turned and walked toward the supply shack. No one followed. No one stopped her. The field buzzed back to life. But something had shifted, just slightly. Enough to leave an open question in the back of every mind that had seen her stand still in that heat, in the middle of Mockery, and choose silence over reaction. Captain Harlan kept watching until she disappeared behind the cinder block wall. He didn't say anything, but his fingers tapped once on the railing, then twice. He'd seen a lot of postures on that grinder. That one was new. By 8:15 a.m., the grinder had found its rhythm. Cadets hauled gear crates, repositioned rafts, adjusted helmet straps in the rising heat. Instructors barked commands in clipped cadence, and jet engines from the tarmac beyond the fence punctuated the air with a low, rolling thunder. Sweat already marked every shirt. Salty mist hung faint in the breeze off the bay. At the edge of it all stood Lieutenant Commander Erin Vaughn. She wore no nameplate, no ribbons, no wings on her chest. Her uniform matched everyone else's in color, but not in energy. There was nothing that told you who she was. Just a plain shirt, a notebook tucked tight against her hip, and a posture that didn't ask for space but claimed it anyway. She wasn't a statue. She shifted now and then, realigning her stance like someone calculating angles. When the cadets jogged past in formation, she didn't move, just tilted her head slightly, eyes tracking their steps, footfalls, breathing patterns. No one knew what box to put her in. The official notice posted inside the command office said she was there to observe training flow and safety protocols. Routine. Nothing tactical. Nothing personal. The kind of role that came with clipboards and acronyms. Most of the cadets paid her no mind. The ones who did made assumptions. She looked too plain to matter. Candidate Ryan Davis made sure to be loud enough for others to hear. He passed her, just as the boat crews cycled through a log carry drill. His boot dragged across the asphalt, sending a deliberate spray of sand onto her legs. He smirked as he kept walking. Voice casual, but aimed with precision. "Let me know if you need help recording that in your field data." "Ma'am." A few laughs followed. Sharp, but short. Erin said nothing. She looked down, brushed the grit from her calf with a slow motion, then returned her gaze to the cadets, working under strain. Her expression didn't change. She wasn't angry. She wasn't amused. She wasn't even present in the way they expected her to be. Alex Rios noticed. He wasn't the kind to speak up, but he watched. He'd seen instructors snap back. He'd seen officers tighten their jaws and push the tone of a room an octave higher. She did none of that. Just reset her footing and continued scanning, as if the insult hadn't even registered on the same frequency she was operating on. What none of them could see was what she was actually doing. She was counting the number of steps from the grinder to the shaded gear rack, noticing the soft tilt of the concrete near the drain by the flagpole, mapping the arc of sun across the deck hour by hour, tracking how long it took each cadet to recover from a log carry, listening not just to the sound of exertion, but for the micro-stumbles in coordination that pointed to early signs of fatigue, imbalance, or gear fit problems. She heard when one candidate's radio headset crackled even though it wasn't in use. She caught the way another favored his right shoulder and shifted the log with subtle compensation. She watched the heat build around the wrists of gloves that weren't taped down and logged how fast salt water evaporated from their uniforms. She was reading the entire environment like a field manual in motion. They thought she was there to take notes. She was, just not the kind they imagined. No one asked her why she didn't wear a trident. No one questioned what she might have earned before walking onto that asphalt. They thought they saw her, but she wasn't really visible yet, and she liked it that way. By 10:30 a.m., the heat had begun to press harder. The sun bore down on the tarmac and metal railings, turning them into hot lines of light. The cadets worked through their next round of drills near the T6 Texan II trainers, sweating through their undershirts as they went through cockpit familiarization. It was the kind of repetition that wore patience: thin, adjust, harness, check seat lock, release canopy latch, repeat. From her place near the edge of the concrete, Lieutenant Commander Erin Vaughn watched it all, not distracted, not daydreaming. She watched like someone who'd done this in silence 1,000 times before. Her eyes moved from grip to boot placement to gear alignment. She tracked how long it took each candidate to climb in and out. She didn't write anything down, but nothing escaped her. A cadet near the ladder rack fumbled his sling. The strap twisted awkwardly, catching on a metal edge. He tugged, impatient, ready to force it. Before he could make it worse, she stepped forward without a word. Her hand moved fast but precise, rotating the rifle, looping the slack back through the retainer, locking it in one smooth motion. Then she stepped back. Didn't wait for thanks. Didn't say a word. Just walked on. The cadet blinked, then kept going. Maybe he thought it was luck. Maybe she used to work maintenance. He didn't ask. No one did. Up above, Captain Harlon had paused mid-step on the catwalk. He caught the motion. He'd seen corrections before, usually from instructors who needed the cadets to know they were wrong. But this wasn't that. This was different. Clean. Quiet. Like someone who didn't need authority to act. Just clarity. He leaned into the rail, watching her more closely now. She shifted her weight, took 2 steps back into the shadows near the equipment cages. Her hands rested behind her back, fingers moving slightly, turning something. The light caught it for just a second. A coin. Not shiny. Not new. Matte black. The edges worn down like it had been pressed into 1,000 palms. A raised emblem shimmered briefly before it vanished back into her fingers. Harlon narrowed his eyes. That wasn't just any coin. That was an EOD challenge coin. but not the standard issue. He'd seen it once, maybe twice. Coins like that weren't handed out in bulk. They weren't for showing off. They were earned, usually off the books. In places where names didn't go into press releases, he tried to place it. Fallujah, Kandahar, a deployment where something had gone wrong, and someone made it right. She turned slightly, as if sensing eyes on her, but didn't look up, just slipped the coin back into her pocket. Harlon straightened up. He didn't say anything, not yet, but something in him shifted. This woman wasn't just an evaluator, not just a paper pusher in a clean uniform, and if she was here watching, measuring, correcting, there was a reason behind it. One the others hadn't figured out yet, but he would. At 5:20 a.m., the base was still quiet. A few gulls circled above the waterline, their calls distant, fading. The corridor outside the women's locker bay smelled of salt, old concrete, and floor wax. Fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead, too bright against the gray of early morning. Erin Vaughn stepped through the door without a sound. She didn't move fast, didn't linger, just walked to her locker like she had every morning since she arrived. Her hand found the lock, turned the combination by touch. The door opened with a soft metallic click. It took less than a second for her to see it. The shelves were empty. Her uniform, gone. The folded notebook where she kept her training observations, gone. Her gloves, her rank patch, even her toothbrush gone. Every item placed with care, stripped away. All that remained was a single piece of lined notebook paper, taped with green electrical tape to the inside wall. Observe this. The words weren't neat. They were rushed, jagged, tilted. Someone had meant them to land like a punch. She looked at it for 3 seconds, maybe 4. Then she pulled it down, folded it once, and slipped it into her pocket. No sigh, no slammed locker, no complaint. From the bottom of her duffel, she pulled out a backup pair of base-issued PTs, wrinkled, a little faded. She changed in silence, laced her shoes tighter than usual, tied a double knot, brushed a hand across the inside of her sleeve where her name used to sit, and then she walked back out through the doorway into the waking light. Outside, a whistle sounded near the range. Somewhere, cadets were forming up for morning drill. The sky was barely touched by color, yet a soft blue creeping behind the barracks. She moved toward the noise without hesitation. What do you do when someone tries to humiliate you in a place where silence is strength? Do you fight back? Do you break down? Or do you walk forward, like nothing was taken from you at all? At 11:15 a.m., the heat outside drove every shimmer of sound inward, echoing off tile and concrete inside the dive facility. The pool stretched still and flat. Bright overhead lights reflected off the water, making it look deeper than it was. A dozen cadets stood at the edge, shoulders tight, gear heavy on their backs. The room smelled like chlorine and neoprene. This was the session no one wanted. Remedial knot tying, full scuba, underwater stress drills, the kind of test that didn't break you physically, but mentally. Cold water, limited visibility, the silence under pressure, a place where confidence slipped fast if you let it. Candidate Alex Rios adjusted his mask 3 times before he got the nod. His hands were shaking. His eyes darted toward the instructors. No one said much. This was the moment meant to teach control. He slipped under the surface. At first, his fins kicked smooth. He reached for the practice rope. Then something shifted. A small moment. A breath too fast. A tug too hard. His left glove slipped off the knot. His other hand missed the second loop. He tried to recover. His legs spasmed slightly. Then the flailing started. Air bubbles burst toward the surface. His back arched. The regulator dislodged. Mask seal cracked. Panic bloomed. No diver was immediately close. One instructor stepped forward, but too slow. The pause hung in the air. Erin Vaughn was already moving. She pulled off her PT shirt in one swift motion, tied her hair without breaking stride. She grabbed the nearest set of fins and a mask, slipped both on with practiced economy. Then she stepped forward and gave the signal, 2 fingers pointed at her eyes. Then at the water, "I see him. I'm going in." She entered the pool like someone who'd done this in open ocean. At night, in worse conditions. Below the surface, the world was a blue-green blur of motion and noise. She moved directly toward Rios. No wasted energy. Her hand reached behind his head, sealed the regulator back into place, rolled his body upward with her other arm. A pivot and lift, pure underwater rescue technique. Flawless. They broke the surface. She tilted his head, gave 2 rescue breaths. Clear. Controlled. Then she signaled the instructors and began moving him to the edge. By the time they reached the deck, Rios had regained his breath, but not his voice. She helped him sit, unclipped his tank, and peeled the mask from his face. She held it up to the light, rotated it, found the hairline tear along the skirt, then she turned it toward him. Bad seal means CO2 builds. You lose oxygen. Your brain thinks you're drowning before you are. She swapped the mask for a new one, checked the fit, tugged the strap. That was it. Rios looked at her, still trembling. But this time, he didn't look through her. He looked at her. The others had fallen silent. No yokes now. No mutters behind hands. They saw it. The precision, the calm, the way she didn't hesitate. They didn't know her story. Not yet. But something had cracked open in that moment. She wasn't one of them. She was something sharper, something forged. And the water had just told them so. It was 2:40 p.m. when Captain Matthew Harlon finally saw the coin clearly. He'd seen it before. Turned between her fingers in quiet moments, palmed like a reflex. Never flaunted. Always tucked away the moment someone got too close. But today, just for a breath of a second, the sun caught it at the perfect angle. And it clicked. Matte black. Worn edges. The detail almost gone from touch alone, but he knew the shape. The EOD insignia, just barely visible. Wrapped with the crest of a Naval Special Warfare Task Unit, it wasn't standard. It wasn't ceremonial. He had only seen 5 of them made. Fallujah, a joint op where timing ran out and luck didn't help. A convoy stranded outside the city, a buried IED with a secondary firing chain, wired to detonate twice. The road was boxed in. Fire from 2 rooftops. The lead MRAP was already hit. Everyone had gone to ground. Except for one. She wasn't listed by name in the report. Just a lieutenant. The kind of redaction that only happened when no one wanted press on what really happened. She'd crawled beneath the vehicle with no blast suit. No cover. Just a ceramic blade and her own hands. Cut the chain. Disarmed the plate. Cleared the path before the second trigger could ignite. No photos. Just a note in the record. A folded flag sent stateside. And a single coin pressed into velvet. He remembered the feeling when he read it. Quiet all. The kind that stays with you years later. Now, standing on the second deck overlooking the training yard, he realized it had been her all along. The way she moved, the silence she kept, the way she didn't correct people when they mocked her or tested her or tried to make her small, because she knew who she was. She didn't need them to. She turned the coin once more in her hand, then slid it back into her pocket without looking. Captain Harlon didn't say anything. Not yet. But the weight of understanding settled into his chest like gravity. This wasn't just some evaluator from the Pentagon. This was the woman who saved lives with nothing but instinct and grit. The woman who did it alone, who never asked for her name to be remembered. Now he would remember it, even if no one else knew. It was 4:20 p.m. when the lineup was called. The cadets stood at attention, gear at their sides. Boots scuffed from drills and sand. The sun was starting to lower, casting long shadows across the concrete. The heat had softened, but the air still carried the weight of the day. Erin Vaughn stood at the edge of the formation, arms behind her back. Quiet as always. She wasn't expecting what came next. Master Chief Braxton stepped forward. His expression was unreadable. The same man who had raised an eyebrow when she first showed up, who made cracks about paperwork and chain of command, now looked straight at her. His jaw tightened, but his voice didn't shake. He brought his hand up to his brow and gave her a sharp salute. No explanation. Just 3 words. I was wrong. That was it. But it rang louder than any announcement could have. For a beat, no one moved. Then Rios, still wearing the dive bandage on his hand, stepped forward. His salute came next. Then one more, and another. Cadets who once mocked her fell silent. They weren't doing it for show. They weren't doing it because they had to. They were doing it because they saw her, not as a commander, not as an outsider, but as someone who walked the walk and never asked for a thing in return. She didn't linger in the moment, just nodded once, softly said thank you, and then, clear and steady, she reminded them why she was there. Boat crews don't leave boatmates behind. That's not how we roll. The wind moved faintly across the line. No applause. No cheer. Just stillness. And in that stillness, something real settled in. Something that would stay with every one of them. At 6:15 p.m., the gear came out. Captain Harlon didn't need a long speech. Just a nod. Erin Vaughn gave one back. No hesitation. She stepped forward as an instructor wheeled out the crate, a plate carrier with front and rear SAPI plates, tactical gloves, a comms headset still cabled to a dummy rig, a cleared M4, bolt locked open, safety flag in place, a high-cut helmet with a salt-bleached chin strap. She didn't need help. One strap at a time. She locked everything in with calm. Practiced ease. No wasted motion. No drama. Just hands that had done this in the dark. Under fire. Soaked through from seawater or sweat. Maybe both. The cadets watched in silence. She began with sling management. Showed how loose ends catch on ladder rails or snap lines. Taught them how to tape the tails down tight with friction wraps. She lifted the rifle with control. Slung it close to her chest. Showed how to rotate for a breech without letting the barrel wander. Then came the chem lights. How to secure them low, far from line of sight. Tape not just for grip, but noise discipline. She moved through the lesson like muscle memory. Because it was, her voice never raised. But no one spoke over her. She pointed to the helmet seal. Then to her jaw. A weak fit means pressure loss. Means blackout risk during fast rope or insertion. You don't notice until your ears ring and your lungs seize. One cadet, Rio, still flushed from earlier, raised a hand, asked about heat casualties after log PT. She didn't pause. Pre-hydrate before 05. Engage scapular muscles before contact. Band pulls. Not stretches. You don't prep. You break down. The damage won't show until someone's cutting your shirt off in an OR. No one laughed. No one leaned back. They were listening now, because the lesson wasn't from a manual. It came from someone who'd lived long enough to carry it forward. It was 5:10 p.m. when the gear deck finally quieted. The sun hung low, casting long amber lines across the concrete. Most of the cadets were gone, scattered off to showers or debriefs. But Erin Vaughn stayed behind. She sat on a low bench near the equipment cage, tightening the laces on her boots with steady, practiced hands. The air was thick with the smell of metal, sweat, and worn nylon. Around her, everything had shifted, but she moved like she always had. Calm, focused, precise. Footsteps approached, slow, deliberate. Alex Rios didn't speak. He didn't need to. He knelt a few feet away, unsnapped his canteen from his rig, and pulled out a strip of green tape, the kind used to mark gear, not torn in haste. He peeled it slow, then wrapped it carefully around the canteen neck. Clean edges, tight finish. One full wrap. No slack. She looked up, Just for a moment, their eyes met. No words, no nods, just stillness. Then she gave the smallest dip of her head, not approval, not permission, recognition. A single act, quiet and exact, the kind of tribute that doesn't need to be explained. And then the silence held, softer than any salute. It was 7:30 p.m. when Erin Vaughn closed the door behind her. No one followed. No footsteps echoed in the hall. The training day had ended the way it began, without fanfare. She sat at her desk under the thin glow of the overhead light, opened her notebook, flipped past the empty locker. The stares, the nods, none of that made it in. She wrote only what mattered: observations about gear friction points, how a cracked mask seal affects airflow, a notation about sling placement and ladder clearances. The handwriting was neat, the tone clinical. The real story lived elsewhere. Outside. The light was fading. She stepped into the evening with slow, unhurried steps. The breeze coming off the bay carried salt and stillness. In her hand, the coin caught it, just enough to shift. She held it steady with her thumb, paratus in pace, ready in peace. The words shimmered for half a second, then vanished under her touch. She slid the coin back into her pocket. Not a keepsake, not a medal, a reminder. Her boots moved over the gravel without a sound. No applause, no eyes watching, just the hum of a bass returning to quiet, and the steps of someone who didn't need to be seen to be known.